netrootsradio.com presents
David Waldman.
Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Wednesday, October 14th, 2020. Time for yet another show and time for yet another October surprise. The internet is abuzz with several of the latest, some more stupid than other October surprises, and we'll catch up, I guess, with what they are and spend hopefully next to zero time on at least some of them. The one that shouldn't surprise you at all, I guess, really the overarching story in the way Greg has reminded you any number of times. The real October surprise is we're still dealing with the pandemic, and no matter what the outcome of the election, we'll still be dealing with a pandemic. The election isn't going to end it. It might give us hope that eventually an administration will take over that will take the pandemic seriously and find us some sort of exit strategy and maybe get us some treatments and therapeutics and possibly eventually a vaccine. But none of that will happen day after the election or the day after you cast your vote early or whatever, however you plan to do it. And we're stuck, thanks to this stupid constitution, I guess, with this lengthy transition period during which, one, we don't know whether the current president, if and when he loses this election, will agree to leave office. And so we're not sure how he'll transition out of these things. And, of course, even if he agrees to leave peacefully as normal, we have to wait until January to even let Joe Biden get a chance to hit the ground running and put some of his plans in place. And who knows how long it would take to get the federal government up to speed for pandemic response ordinarily at the beginning, when there was a real chance of tamping down on transmission of the virus, as opposed to a year into it when there's very little opportunity to do the things you ordinarily might plan to do. It might be that the old playbook isn't something you can just trot out and put into place and hope to tamp down on things right away. No doubt that's entered some of the strategists' minds over in the Trump camp, that even if we lose, we'll leave behind a sabotaged, ailing, and dying United States for Joe Biden to clean up, and then when he is unable to clean up our mess, we finally will have succeeded in making a big enough mess that Democrats can't come in afterwards and spend their term in office cleaning it up just to get us back to the starting point, only to have us pull for a change election and come in and ruin things again. This has been the recurring pattern with Republicans since forever. But yeah, that of course ought to be the overarching story, and I think that's the way people are voting. And of course, people standing in line with masks on for hours on end, waiting to drop their ballots in a ballot box, a collection box, or cast their votes in person early, and voting in ways that they never had to before, must probably have that in mind, and most likely are casting their ballots appropriately. And of course, there is the more traditional style of October surprise being launched by the Trump campaign. This, despite the fact that everyone has told us that the likelihood of changing the direction of the election with an October, traditional style October surprise is less and less likely every day because of all the early voting. They had one in mind and rolled it out. The internet is abuzz with several of them. Not sure. Let's see. We'll see what order we approach them. The one that's most real, of course, is and the one which concerns me the most, although you never know what the impact of totally stupid crap is going to be, is the one in which the Trump campaign waves its hands and screams and yells and works the ref and complains and says, you got to cover our side of things. And eventually the media comes around and says, fine, we'll run the story the way you want it run in the interest of fairness. And here is the big blockbuster. Of course, many of you probably think I'm thinking of the New York Post story, if you can call it that. I guess the word fits, about Biden, Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, Burisma, Ukraine, you remember. By the way, it's 2020 right now, October 2020, not 2019. This isn't a rerun. We're not talking about the run-up to the impeachment of Donald Trump, where we're right here in the present. But I'm not even talking about that story. I'm talking about his hand-waving, ref-working, complaining, and getting exactly what he wanted out of the media by having the second town hall-style debate with Joe Biden canceled on account of his being a typhoid risk, carrying the virus and poisoning the entire audience, not to mention the opposing candidate and the news media who are going to be present. But he wanted to have his opportunity to get on television and ruin his chances at election anyway. So he browbeat the media into it. Apparently, after all this is done and after Joe Biden said, well, I'll do the debate, we'll just do it remotely. Like everybody knows that that's the answer to something like this. We've been living with this pandemic for, I don't know, how many months now? 7, 8 months. And you know that the answer is if you can't gather in person, you gather remotely. And we're all pretty adept at it. And let's go forward with the debate as planned. And Trump said, no, I'm not going to do it that way. Somehow it's totally different from every other remote event I'm doing. Complain. And so, the upshot was fine. The debate commission says, well, there won't be this debate. We'll just move to the third debate, by which time you'll be presumably cleared by the doctors to participate, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't know why Trump ended up insisting on this thing. The town hall is a terrible format for him because he can't browbeat and bully his questioners, although he may try anyway. I don't know. Or maybe he thinks, I got the hang of it now, I'll do it. But I guess he prevailed on NBC saying, I'm willing to show up. What about my town hall? Why don't I get it? And NBC said, maybe we can operate outside of the official debate platform. There's no reason why we couldn't set up and host a solo town hall on television for Donald Trump. And I don't know, I guess we can say maybe they probably did offer the same to Joe Biden. But, scheduling is tight. It doesn't matter for Donald Trump because he changes his schedule on a whim anyway. And I guess all his operatives are kind of used to that. And whatever. But so he's, I don't know, I guess they'll probably, I'm sure NBC justifies it by saying, well, we have the same offer out there for Joe Biden if he wants it. But of course, that's not a debate. The town hall format isn't a particularly good one, I don't think, for a debate, but it's a recognized format for some reason. We've all seen it before. We've seen it fail before, so we might as well watch it fail again. But yeah, you're not supposed to be able to, one, you're not supposed to contract the coronavirus in all this. 2, you're not supposed to have the debate canceled on you because of, behavior that's your own fault. And then 3, yell and scream and then get exactly what you want in even better form offered to you by the media. They're supposed to know better. The candidates are supposed to be better, but that's never going to happen. And I'm beginning to think that the media part will never happen either. So there you have it. I don't even remember. They said when the stupid town hall is going to be. I think they might have said Thursday. It might be this Thursday. It might be next Thursday. I don't even really know. I don't care. I'm not sure if I'll find out. I'm pretty sure I won't watch. So what's the difference? When they announce it'll happen, it happens. Fine. I'll live with it. There is, of course, another story circulating, and it's the one you always figured that they were going to roll out about this time. Magically, conveniently, it turns out that damning emails, because they love emails, have existed this whole time and were just discovered in a computer shop in Delaware on a laptop that totally had a sticker on it that said, "My name is Hunter Biden and I'm a criminal." And there's emails back and forth between Joe Biden and Hunter Biden and probably Jack the Ripper as well on there, maybe Charles Manson, some people from Burisma, all thanking one another for the crime. And what a great thing corruption is. And P.S. don't tell America. And, gosh, I guess they got him dead to rights on this one. So that too being discussed. There's an even crazier one that long story short for you. The new QAnon theory. I'm not sure where it came from, why it happened, what they think they're going to get out of it, and where it leads. But long story short, the Osama bin Laden raid did not happen. It was faked by the Obama administration. And you'd think, oh my gosh, at some point the rest of us will find out about it. But don't worry, because Obama and really Biden had SEAL Team 6 murdered so that they wouldn't be able to talk about it. Now, SEAL Team 6 is currently unhappy about that because they didn't get murdered. And they would like people to know that, I guess. But it does set up an interesting tension because a couple of the SEAL Team 6 members are big Trump supporters and MAGA guys, and suddenly they find themselves cast in the role of Obama administration deep state operative, and their biggest accomplishment in life, and really, I guess, the aim of the Q theory, one of Obama's biggest accomplishments, is now erased from history. It was all fake, just like the moon landing, and also this podcast, I guess. I don't know. So that's what we have to contend with. Pick your craziest one and go with it, and I guess we'll debunk it. Greg Dworkin is here. I think he's kept his feet on planet Earth, yes, in the last couple of days. Is that where you are, Greg? Good morning.
Well, I've tried, but
good.
Women are from Venus and men are from Mars, so you never really know.
Right. So basically, what you're saying is Hunter Biden is guilty.
Well, the thing is,
let
me set this up by simply giving you two quick commentaries on it, and then we'll talk about the story. Juliet Kayyem, who's an expert on this.
Oh, all right.
CNN Analysis, Department of Homeland Security, says, why are you all amplifying a New York Post story with no context, a bizarre factual basis for receipt of the computer? Now, don't forget, not only was it sitting in a Delaware repair shop,
yes,
but what happened is the owner decided to make a copy of it and then
like they all do,
gave it to Rudy Giuliani's lawyer, who conveniently only released it now, even though they've had it since December or something along those lines.
I told you.
But why are you all amplifying a New York Post story with no context, a bizarre factual basis for receipt of the computer, nor acknowledgement that the amplification is the key to the disinformation campaign? We knew this desperation was coming. They're the same. Why are you? That's the academic analytic version of it. Rick Wilson has a better one, I think, for like the general public. I see the New York Post has dropped Rudy's October surprise, which is going over about as well as a wet fart at Sunday dinner, which I think is right, because what happened is Jake Sherman took this New York Post story and had a couple of lines about it in his Politico playbook, which is very widely read. Then he tweeted about it and got so much crap for it, he had to backtrack and say, well, here's somebody else saying maybe it's not true. Oh. And then Maggie Haberman did the same and got crap for it. And she had to clean up in aisle 4 and go back and say something similar. Reporters all over are saying, wait a minute, we don't know that this is true. And even if it is, why are you publishing it? The whole thing sounds kind of stupid. And this comes in context with John Harwood tweeting a few hours ago at 7:30 this morning. This is the fourth time a Trump-affiliated group has used Russian footage in an ad to recap. He's talking about another story from Politico. Another pro-Trump ad uses footage from Russia. Russian intelligence aided Trump's 2016 campaign. Per Mueller probe, Trump campaign welcomed the help. Trump has boosted Russia's strategic goals as president. He tweeted that just before this story started flying around Twitter. And it's like people have no self-awareness at all. The Politico reporter, Jake Sherman, doesn't even mention this other Politico piece about Russian disinformation and just goes ahead and retweets the New York Post story with no context, which is the thing that we always yell at reporters for. So then they have to go back and say, okay, well, Jake Sherman says, Kyle Cheney makes two important observations in this thread. The smoking gun, even if authentic, doesn't actually say what the story says it does. Then why did you tweet it? And then says, stipulating the suspect email is real. There's literally nothing in it that says Joe Biden met with the Burisma advisor. The opportunity to meet may just as easily have meant Hunter promised a meeting. But there's other stuff, too. And, part of why Jake Sherman is getting crap is because what he tweeted after, suggesting that this story existed, he said, I've not seen a response yet from Team Joe Biden on this New York Post story. Like they're owed a response for disinformation. That's what got people so angry.
That was funny. And, of course, waking up to that and say, I haven't seen a response yet.
To what?
Of course
to
not.
What? And then you read the story and you go, wait a minute. Some dude.
Where and when did you respond, even?
In Spy versus Spy outfit says that he secretly got this by copying something and gave it to Rudy Giuliani's lawyer, and you're taking this story seriously? What the hell is wrong with you? Judd Legum has a nice little thread on this. But I think it's important because it shows how the media function. And before I saw that, I was already collecting articles about how stressed the media are.
Oh.
And, well, they're putting themselves at risk for physical risk for coronavirus. They're getting violent stuff yelled at them. It's a risky job to the point where people the press pool doesn't want to travel with Trump.
Right.
And
hiring
have refused
bodyguards.
to. It's real.
In Denver.
And then this story comes out and they feel like, well, this is part of our job, but we have all these other pressures. I sort of feel sorry for them, but don't be stupid. And they themselves realized how stupid it was because they started backtracking like 30 minutes after they did the initial tweets and got such pushback from the public, which is one of the great things that Twitter does. So Judd Legum says, look, I'm going through a few issues with the New York Post article on Biden, which I won't link to, but you probably see on Twitter. Follow along if interested. First, the information comes from a laptop that was allegedly dropped off at a repair shop in Biden's home state of Delaware and never picked up.
That's what
the shop owner, who is not identified, couldn't positively identify the customer as Hunter Biden.
Right.
The shop owner thinks it was Hunter Biden because Bo Biden's sticker on the laptop, which makes no sense. You drop off an expensive Mac laptop at a repair shop and you don't leave your name or contact information.
Right. But a sticker that says, I love obscure Biden person.
But then, after claiming the shop owner couldn't identify the customer, the piece includes a receipt that was issued to Hunter Biden and includes an email and phone number. So why would the shop owner produce a receipt for Hunter Biden if he didn't know the ID of the customer?
That is odd, isn't it?
The piece claims the shop owner then alerted the FBI to the existence of the laptop and was later subpoenaed by a grand jury, but the grand jury subpoena shown doesn't connect the laptop to Hunter Biden.
Oh.
And then things get weird, as if this wasn't weird enough.
Oh, all right. Hang on. Now, and now for the weird.
And now for the where are you sitting? The shop owner says before turning over the computer to the feds, they made a copy of the contents and gave them to Rudy Giuliani's lawyer.
Right.
Because that's what all shop owners do.
That's how you fix things.
It's part of the shop owner credo. It's right there in step 9. That's up there on the wall.
Right.
If you're going to be a shop owner,
turning it off,
charge money, you have to give the product back,
right,
and you have to turn anything over that you copy from a hard drive to Rudy Giuliani's lawyer. That's right there, number 9. So therefore, you have to do it.
I figured it was after it. Have you tried turning it off and turning it back on again? Yeah,
that's number 3.
Have you copied and given it to Rudy Giuliani?
The New York Post allegedly learned about this copy of the laptop through Steve Bannon.
Reliable guy.
Both Giuliani and Bannon are regular sources of disinformation, but this is the important point. Pretending for a moment that everything in the story is true, which is highly doubtful.
Let's do that.
It's totally inconsequential. One email recovered on the laptop proves Hunter once introduced a Burisma executive to his father.
That's it?
That's it.
What happened to the...
This is a scandal. There's no word on the length of the meeting, what was discussed. The New York Post says it's significant because Biden then called for the ouster of the Ukrainian prosecutor, which is false. The prosecutor wasn't investigating Burisma. The prosecutor was corrupt, which is why the international community was going for his ouster. We've been all through this. It was a year ago.
Yeah, right.
Allegedly, the laptop Hunter forgot to pick up also contains a 12-minute video of him smoking crack and having sex with an unidentified women. No mention of golden showers here. Nonetheless, this incredibly sketchy, totally unverified, and ultimately irrelevant story is being promoted by mainstream journalists, Maggie Haberman and Jake Sherman, who don't work for the New York Post. Don't be fooled by that.
Maybe they want to.
Right. Greg Sargent says the New York Post story some are tweeting about has a huge falsehood, and his story claims Biden pushed for the ouster of the Ukrainian prosecutor, which is flatly false, and the ouster was backed by the international institutions. Anybody pushing disinformation and propaganda in my feed on this gets blocked immediately. Don't even effing try it. No one is obliged to pretend what you all are doing has even the slightest shred of legitimacy. I mean, people are angry about this. So, I think their fellow journalists being angry about it had an effect, and that's why, Haberman and Sherman backed off a little bit, and it'll be interesting to see how they handle it.
Yes, well, it's really about them, or it could be.
Well, I think it's about them.
I guess so. I mean, this is a perfect strike. Smoking crack and having sex on video. I thought they earlier.
It's everything they love. It's everything that the tabloids love, which is why the New York Post does it.
A satanic prostitute.
Well, how they get Osama bin Laden into it, I'm not really sure.
He's in a different.
Maybe it was Osama bin Laden's laptop. I can't tell.
Maybe it was one of his wives.
Maybe Elvis dropped it off. The whole thing is so
about that
ridiculous. But the reason that I want to highlight it is I think it's important to go over how our media, on the one hand, has learned nothing, like Haberman and Sherman, and on the other hand, has learned a lot because it was almost self-correcting within a half hour.
Oh, I thought we learned
within a half hour they were
get
getting
famous.
bombed by this, and they had to back off. That's
Well,
way
that's
better
a
than
good
2016
learning experience. Yeah, that's true. That's good. I mean, it's a reaction you could have to things.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not praising Sherman and Haberman, but I am praising the rest of the community for
that was a nice
saying this is garbage.
But of course, on the Bannon and Giuliani side of it, and Trump will agree. Oh, but we got it out there. That's the real point. And,
but that's what Julia Kayyem said. The whole point is to get it out there, and then maybe you erase your original tweet that people are objecting to. But the information's out there anyway, and so now you can't even trace where it came from.
Yeah, it's not even information. I mean, it's just a thing that you said.
Yeah, it's just a thing, but that's how it works.
Yeah.
So the context to all of this is Trump is losing so badly, this is not going to make any difference. This is not a close race that this is somehow going to decide things.
People
and it's
want
not
their ballots
5 days
back.
before the election. He's getting clobbered. He knows he's getting clobbered. He's out of money. There's a big story about how they, if they had kept going with Brad Parscale as campaign manager, they literally would have gone broke.
Awesome.
They were spending more money raising money than they were on anything else. And right now they don't have the money to get up and challenge Biden in all the places that he's putting money up.
Well, this is more fun anyway for them, I'm sure.
Right.
And,
so
Bannon
that's the
works
context for all of this. The Pundit Roundup headline, because it was written before all this crap stuff broke. A race shifts towards Biden as Trump does a nostalgia tour for himself. What's happening? And again, you have to put this in context as well. Trump knows he's losing. He's saying things at his rallies like, why won't you like me? You have to like me. I want you to like me. I saved your damn suburbs. I mean, he's talking to suburban women. He knows what the polls are showing.
Please like me. On
Nothing
Facebook.
that what Trump is doing is going to help him. These rallies are for himself to put his fragile ego back together so he can tough out the last 2 or 3 weeks, because his id, his ego, his superego, everything about him is getting savaged by what's happened. His great genes didn't protect him from getting coronavirus.
Yes, they did.
He's going to lose, and that's sinking in. He has trouble handling stuff like this, so he has to make his own reality. And the way to make your own reality is to, put everybody else at risk by having rallies that serve your needs, forgetting about them. And that only, underlines why people have been turning away, which they have been. Here's we've talked about this before because she's done this before. Sarah Longwell, Republican Voters Against Trump founder, says she's been doing focus groups on the suburban women, and she said she did a focus group tonight with women who voted for Trump in 2016. Not a single one was planning to vote for him again. I'm waiting for her to write that up for Bulwark. She usually does. I haven't seen it yet. And she has a reporter with her, James Astill, who is from Washington Bureau Chief and Lexington columnist for The Economist, watching a Sarah Longwell focus group of undecided ex-Trump supporters, all non-college women in swing states, low trust, somewhat disengaged, hard-pressed, but hard to exaggerate the degree to which Trump's COVID craziness has cut through. The verdict is devastating. What else does he say? Not much else there. So we got to really want to see what the write-up shows. But the last write-up that she did on this was incredible. And these focus groups are way better than the Frank Luntz focus groups of people who really know what they want to do, but they just want to get themselves on TV. It's the Ken Bone, who's back again, by the way, of I don't know who to vote for. Why do you cover me for like a week and a half and interview me? Because I need the attention.
Is he undecided again?
Yes.
Oh, that's fun. I understand he's on Cameo.
The Sarah Longwell focus group, I think, is far more interesting.
Yes.
But that's the background about what's going on this morning. We'll go over specifics and particulars and talk a little bit about the prediction models after the break and what they're showing.
Oh, yeah.
But, hey, we're seeing national polls that are as high as Biden plus 17.
That's pretty amazing. And I'm glad
that's
for so
Ronald
much
Reagan
early
1984
voting.
territory.
That's crazy. Well, good. I love that it's happening in the middle of early voting and people can actually do things about it. We don't have to ask ourselves
10%
if the
of
election
the
were
country
held
has already
today.
voted. I don't think they're going to be swayed by the New York Post.
Well, now
garbage.
there's no chance for them to be swayed. And it's probably going to send some people out to the early voting stations to say, but before I have to listen, or maybe I can turn all of this off if I just cast my vote, then I can feel okay about turning off the news. I want to stay informed right up until the point where at least I cast my vote. But I really want to break from this garbage. That's a great way to do it. If you're feeling that way, get out and cast your vote and turn off the news, except for this show.
Right. So, again, my opinion is what happened is
And
that
Justice,
Sherman and
let's
Haberman
say.
and all the Access journalists tweeted this garbage, knowing it's garbage because they wanted to get that one more interview with Ivanka about how great
she
Ivanka
healthy
is. And it kind of backfired, and now they feel a little bit bad about it. They're not ashamed because they have no shame. But I think it's fair to say that, this business model didn't work. Maybe we should cut our losses.
Okay. Well, it's entirely possible. I don't know if Ivanka is healthy enough to do an interview. I think people have noted that she and Jared are kind of missing from the scene, but I do think I saw her on video the other day, but I don't know what she was doing or to whom she was speaking. Maybe to her doctors, but it was set up to look like a television interview. But and people haven't heard from them in a while, so I guess that's a hot ticket now. We'll get the last pre-election sit-down with Ivanka as though something were to be learned from all of this. But I guess not. It's not going to work. They had to back off. That's good news. All right, we'll round up the rest of the crazy stories, and there are plenty of them, after this break, during which I'm going to hold my breath so I don't get COVID. Just want to make it all the way to the election until my early polling station opens. We'll be right back. Hi, it's me, David Waldman, your host for Kagro in the Morning, and I've learned that I either need to update these announcements more often or stop saying that the announcements are brand new. What's not new is that this message, too, is a call for your support in keeping the Kagro in the Morning show on the air. My thanks go out to all of you who do support the show through your donations. The stats say that Kagro in the Morning fans download our program about 2,000 times each weekday, but our donors make up only about 8% of our daily listeners. Patreon.com, Patreon.com, makes it simple to make easy, secure, recurring monthly contributions to support our show. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. If we're helping keep you sane during the Trump era, consider what that's worth. $1 a day? 50 cents? One thin dime? We do about 20 shows a month, so pick a number, do the math, and head to patreon.com/KagroX to let us know. Thanks again, everyone, for all your support. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Greg Dworkin is still with us. We're still rounding up the crazy weirdo stories. There's more. I don't know.
Well, this
I feel
is
bad
a
about
legal
spending this much time
perspective
on it, but
as
this
opposed
is
to a
interesting.
journalistic perspective. So this is Daniel Goldman. You remember him because he was the lead Democratic counsel during the impeachment.
Again. Yes. Now, there you go. Thank you.
Okay. He says, why would the FBI subpoena this computer? If the store owner could give it to Giuliani, he could give it to the FBI. That makes no sense. And let's remember, Burisma was hacked last fall by Russia. Don't be complicit in spreading Russian efforts to interfere in the election. And then he thinks about it even further and says, there's even more questions. The FBI would need a search warrant to get access to the contents of the computer, which means they need to have evidence that Hunter committed a crime. And we've seen no such evidence, despite persistent GOP efforts to fabricate it. But given Giuliani's open efforts to work with known Russian agents to influence the election and the fact that there's an ongoing investigation into Giuliani, could the subpoena be part of an investigation into Giuliani conspiring with Russians to interfere in the election? Did they subpoena it because they wanted to nail Giuliani, not Biden?
That would be something. I mean, they did, as you would expect, the name and address on the subpoena is redacted. And I guess we're supposed to.
Yeah, what if it's Rudy?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you put that out alongside a story, as that maybe you made up, that there's this computer store guy who says he was the one who got the subpoena, but then taking a look at other points made by Goldman here, what do you need a subpoena for if there's already a copy in the hands of the FBI? You would want the physical evidence, I suppose, but equally plausible is this is a subpoena either to the shop or to Giuliani, because we heard you were putting together a fake Hunter Biden laptop to drop off at a mystery shop with a compliant owner who would copy the contents of it and give it to you, even though that would violate just about every, code of conduct you could possibly think of for a computer repair shop guy. Why would you copy the contents of their... No one's going to have their laptops repaired anymore. They're afraid that it'll all be copied and given to Rudy Giuliani. Well, yeah, you're right. None of this makes sense. It's a good point. Kind of not how subpoenas work. And it's odd that a story that would involve Rudy Giuliani, who says he's a lawyer, and has connections with the FBI office, at least the New York FBI office, plus another lawyer of his, which I don't even understand. By the way, the president's personal lawyer who has a lawyer.
Who got a story that mentions Rudy Giuliani, their first thought should be, oh, this is fake.
Yeah, then let's throw Steve Bannon in
and if
there
it's
and see if that
not, you
helps.
have not been paying attention.
I guess not. But Steve Bannon has
Glenn
credibility.
Pensler, who's the fact checker guy over at the Washington Post, his response to this: here's the Washington Post policy regarding hacker-leaked material during the final weeks of an election season. Be careful what's in your social media feeds. He didn't retweet it. He didn't comment on it. He just said, we're not doing this.
Okay. Well, that's well done there.
Right. So I think, again, media has learned something. It's just that Haberman and Sherman haven't.
Yeah, well, it only takes a few. Okay.
Well, it only takes a few very high-profile.
Yes, right.
And for those of you who, oh, Maggie Haberman, what a wonderful journalist. All you people keep attacking her for no reason. No, this is the reason.
No, well, this is one anyway. So, okay. Well, it's
she does
exciting,
stuff
isn't
like
it?
this all the time. So anyway, that's the end of that story.
All right.
The other story you were talking about, which is worth noting, it isn't just that NBC agreed to put Trump on. Right. NBC agreed to put Trump on at the exact same time Biden's going to be on ABC doing the same thing.
I did not mention that. I don't think I was even aware of it, but I now see that, and that's a huge part of the story. I'll repeat it out loud so that everyone here at home can hear this thing, because this was a subject of some concern. That just in case you didn't hear Greg say it, everybody on the radio. So they're putting Trump's town hall on opposite Biden's previously scheduled ABC town hall. So that's a pretty good thing. Why would NBC do it? Why not let Fox do it? Why not leave it to them? I guess they wanted the ratings, but how will they get them if I have to flip back and forth between the two? Can I report that I watched both? Can I tape one? Does TiVo matter in the ratings? I don't know. Wow, that's pretty dumb.
Even
for NBC, that's dumb.
I'm a senior, and I remember when I was growing up, it was a thing.
I can't watch two.
That the networks would often put these situation comedy, the sitcoms on. Yeah. Not necessarily, head to head, but they basically steal each other's themes.
Okay.
If one put on a spy show, the other one would have to put on some kind of spy show. Right. There was a spoof of superheroes. Right, and one channel did Captain Nice, and the other one did Mr. Terrific. You won't remember these shows; they lasted about 3 episodes. But that's not the point. The point is, I heard you're doing this, so we're going to do the same thing.
Right,
and that happens, and it's still happening. So, you're going to do a town hall? We'll do a town hall. All right. We don't want you watching your network. We want you watching our network, so we'll do it at the same time.
Well, I guess if you flip back and forth, you could get the effect of having a remote town hall.
Well, but the thing is, you're used to this from the entertainment division. You're not used to this to the news division. True. But what people forget is that the entertainment division swallowed the news division years ago at these networks.
Yeah.
And usually the same person runs both.
Right.
Because they see news as entertainment, and that's why we are where we are, and that's how you get Maggie Haberman and Jake Sherman at the top of their profession.
Can we get NBC to recognize that we are
Hopper, these it used to be, page whatever of the tabloids, you'd have one of these gossip. I was out in the town and I saw so and so and they were drinking, but I won't tell you who they are, but their initials are,
the old
Frank Sinatra.
Some initials. Well, he's got a lot of names, and it's an acronym, Frank Sinatra. Most people didn't know that.
So Jeff Greenfield, who's a seasoned reporter, says the decision by NBC News to run a Trump town hall directly opposite ABC's Biden town hall is indefensible. That's all he says. That's all he has to say.
That is happening. I think I would advise the Biden campaign to demand that NBC cover the hearings for his Supreme Court nominee. It's a totally legit nomination, and whoever we approve here will be on the Supreme Court. So cut away from Amy Coney Barrett, everybody, and come on over to our Supreme Court nomination, which is on at the same time on a different channel, and it's the same thing, and just look at us.
So the Amy Coney Barrett thing is going on. It'll be going on for the next few days. It is preordained. It's not very entertaining. It's interesting, I suppose, if you can drag yourself to watch it. I can't. I'm looking for the sound bites afterwards. The Democrats are on message. The Republicans are on message. She's pushing bland. It's not going to change any votes. She will be confirmed. It will be a disaster. And then the Democrats are going to have to do something about it. At the current time, the Democrats are winning the election, and they're now favored to take the Senate. And in a huge ratings change, the Cook Political Report said yesterday that instead of predicting a 1 or 2 pickup lead for the Democrats, they're now predicting a 7-seat pickup.
7-seat. Well, okay, but that would be enough to swing it to.
That would be enough to swing it to the Democrat side. But so that's enormous.
It's a different way of saying the same thing, though, isn't it? If we're going to win control of the Senate, that I think
it's only going to be by a couple of seats, but you have to pick up a lot of seats to do it.
Yes.
So they're favored to do that now, which doesn't mean they will, but they're favored to do that. We're learning that, for example, in the North Carolina race, the Cal Cunningham sex scandal means nothing.
Laptop. Yeah, they need a laptop there, quick.
Hurry, nobody's paying attention, or if they are, they're saying that's nice. There's bigger fish to fry.
I guess so.
We hate Tom Tillis, and we're not voting for him regardless. So the Republicans are very, very unhappy about that. The Gary Peters race.
Yes.
Peters is the Democrat,
yes,
and James is the Republican. Is still very close. I suspect Peters will wind up pulling it out. Because in Michigan, things are still trending toward Biden. And by the way, in Michigan, you're allowed to vote straight tickets. So that's going to help him.
Oh.
And there's going to be money there, and there's going to be advertising on his behalf. And one of the interesting things that the New York Times Siena poll said that a lot of people don't even know who Gary Peters is, even though he's your senator, because he's low-key and non-scandal, no drama Obama type. So we'll see what happens there. But people were joking on Twitter, obviously with the non-effect that Cal Cunningham's sex DMs are having on the election, perhaps Peters should reach for his phone and do something. Which is very funny if you know Gary Peters, because that is never going to happen.
Not like. Although we had a nice story about him.
That's like asking Mr. Rogers to do that just for the publicity. It's just not happening.
I guess not. He's got a nice story out, and I shared it yesterday, and in an unlikely source, I thought, but a very interesting story in Elle magazine.
Yes.
But I thought it was worth sharing just to sort of help get some focus on what kind of person he is and why he's so low profile, etc. But he shared a story in light of the Amy Coney Barrett hearings of his first wife having essentially having a miscarriage with their second, would have been their second child, and requiring in the end a medically necessary abortion, essentially to save her life, and just pointing out these things happen all the time.
And that was the decision between them and their doctor, not the government. And that's just the way it should go.
That's the standard part of the story, but just demonstrating this happens to everyone, and there are plenty of reasons, and I don't know whether people who are knee-jerk on the issue ever think these things through, but I thought it was also important and interesting. They pointed out this is the first sitting senator to tell such a story, and it was interesting that it was, obviously it wasn't going to be his own personal story because he wasn't the one who was pregnant, but I took something extra out of it too, just saying, up to now it's been up to the women to step forward and tell those stories, and, there's men involved in those stories. They could tell it too.
Well, since you mentioned that, let's talk about Pete Buttigieg and his response. This is in the Pundit Roundup to a late abortion question.
Oh, yes. All right.
Which was wonderful. And it's a horrible situation to be in, but his response was wonderful. What he said is, I think the dialogue has gotten so caught up on where you draw the line that we've gotten away from the fundamental question of who gets to draw the line. And I trust women to draw the line when it comes to their own health. And Chris Wallace, because this was on Fox News, says, so just to be clear, you're saying you would be okay with a woman well into the third trimester deciding to abort her pregnancy. And Buttigieg says, look, these hypotheticals are usually set up in order to provoke strong emotional response. It's not hypothetical, said Wallace. There's 6,000 women a year who get abortions in the third trimester. And Buttigieg says, that's right, representing less than 1% of cases. So let's put ourselves in the shoes of a woman. Let's see if I can open it. There we go. Who is in that situation. If it's that late in your pregnancy, almost by definition, you've been expecting to carry it to term. So we're talking about women who've perhaps chosen a name, purchased a crib, families that then get the most devastating medical news of their lifetime, something about the health or life of the mother or viability of the pregnancy that forces them to make an impossible, unthinkable choice. And the bottom line is, as horrible as that choice is, that women, that family may seek spiritual guidance, medical guidance, but the decision is not going to be made any better medically or morally because the government is dictating how the decision should be made.
Right.
It's a great answer.
It is.
And it was made on Fox. Everybody could hear it. And, Pete Buttigieg is very good with answers like that.
Yeah.
He guy should run for president someday.
Oh, yeah. That's a good idea. I should tell him. But then he would flip the script on us and explain why he shouldn't. He's so amazing.
Right.
He's very good at that.
He's overqualified and overtalented, but he'd make a great press secretary as opposed to the liar that we have there now. And it doesn't matter, fill in the name, because they just rotate.
Yes,
but,
that's true.
He's very good on stuff like that.
He's very good with that. And
meanwhile, while all this is happening, last night, talk about the fact that Trump is doing the rallies for his own benefit, his personal benefit, not for the campaign's benefit, and that he's just doing so badly it's really hard to imagine that he has any chance of winning. Last night, he tweeted a remarkable little graphic, which is the Joe Biden for president, only the P is crossed out, so it says Biden for resident.
Yeah.
And what he did is he tweeted a picture of what looks like a assisted living or nursing home situation with Biden's head photoshopped onto somebody sitting next to a bunch of older folks in wheelchairs.
Okay.
And the thing says Biden for resident.
Resident of
and it's tweeted all over by MAGA World. And for some reason, they think this is helpful.
Yes, because the president
incredibly
being
offensive.
juvenile is awesome.
As if you need to be told that. And seniors are already breaking for Biden. And how this is supposed to be helpful, because they're still pushing this idea that Biden is feeble and senile. And, even though Biden's about to have a town hall and has had town halls and he's been there and done that and people have seen that it's nonsense, and he's still pushing it as if it's somehow going to help him.
Well, he learned that was going to work, and he hasn't been doing his studying since.
Oh, I'm surprised he had Biden. Why didn't he do Hillary? Because basically that's the campaign he's running.
Yes. I don't know. That's a good question. He probably
he's
did.
Really ticked off he has to run against Biden.
Maybe
he
they already
run against Hillary when that couldn't happen. Because I'm told, I haven't looked at the polls this morning yet, but I'm told Hillary's not running well.
Oh.
I mean, I don't even see her name. She must be running really far behind.
Yes. Oh, it's a joke. You looked at the polls.
Oh, I did. Yeah. But, it's incredible. I mean, we're talking about Florida. We're talking about Arizona. We're talking about Pennsylvania. We're talking about states that have a solid senior population that's going to decide the election.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe they won't find that funny. And then what happens?
Then he loses.
Oh, well, so what's the difference, right? Says Abby. Exactly. Perfect response, if you ask me.
It's 9:45 Wednesday. Folks.
Right. Oh, true. Yes. Okay. All right. Well, understandable. And it's been what is that? That's pretty interesting. I just saw at the same time, by the way, that you mentioned that on one of my screens that's open to Twitter, that ad went by, and I thought about grabbing it, but I don't know. And probably you've seen it and nobody wants to see it, so I don't think I'll even bother putting that in the roundup. It's not even a good Photoshop, so you can't even give him credit for that. And the joke of taking the P out of the word president and turning it into resident goes back at least to, in my online experience, at least to the George W. Bush administration when people called him that on account of the Bush v. Gore result and having him installed in the White House by the Supreme Court, which we've circled back to in history. So, well,
we got about another 5 minutes of Abby barking till the garbage folks. The sanitation engineers finish working on the outside project here.
We should interview her.
Which is
or
to
give
say
her
picking
a.
up the trash.
Yeah, all right. Well, you tell her in the interim she can have a town hall. And if she wants it to be Thursday night, I'll put it. Who's left? CBS.
CBS is open.
Okay, so we'll do it on CBS. It'll be great. People will watch. I don't know. It'd be very interesting to see what kind of reporting comes out of it. And I imagine the Trump administration, or Trump, well, it's supposed to be the campaign, but probably both, the administration and the campaign, will be pressing for ratings information and hoping that the story that come out of it is, I got better ratings on my town hall than Joe Biden got on his, and I don't know if they're going to actually get that angle. So I have to think of something new.
Because there's rubbernecking involved here.
Yes.
Trump is clearly losing, and I'm tempted to see how badly he does with actual real people.
I guess so. I mean, I'm a little bit curious.
Is he going to come out in a Superman suit? What's the deal?
Oh yeah, right. We never mentioned that story, but you've all heard that one by now. I guess that he meant to come out of the hospital. He was going to sandbag us all by shuffling out of the hospital and then pause and tear the shirt open and have a Superman thing on underneath. But, well.
It didn't work because he, got wind that Biden was going to show up in a Batman costume and say this is stupid.
That could be. I don't know if he could have handled the buttons on his shirt, or maybe he didn't want to ruin the buttons on his shirt, or can't really undo them that quickly. Also, if you get a good, well-made, authentic Superman-type costume, you got to have a base to lay that over, is what I'm going to say. And, I mean, if you tear open the shirt and reveal your chest with the Superman outfit on underneath and you're, a regular 75-year-old person, chances are you're not going to impress with the Superman reveal the same way that,
chances are.
Right. So
Jonathan Last has a nice little, very short piece over at the Bulwark. I just scanned by. It's called The Last Days of the Trump Scampaign.
Oh.
It was never about winning votes. It's about bleeding the rubes dry. And when I see these meetings, these rallies that he's staging,
Yes.
your first question, of course, is who goes to them? Well, if it's at the White House and it's Blexit, it's people who are paid to go. But these are not paid people, I don't think, all of them that go to the Florida rallies and places like that. Why would they go? Why would they, put their own health and the health of their families at risk? I don't know. I still don't know who goes to, Beach Boys nostalgia tours. That's basically what this is.
Totally different one, but
everybody knows the songs. Everybody knows the lines. They sing along. They're happy.
That's kind of what happens.
That's what happens.
Yeah. Lock Her Up. I don't even know what the other hits are, but they do seem to do the same ones over and over again.
Anyway, so Jonathan Last describes some of the scam emails that they're getting. This one, for example, this is from the Trump campaign. Friend, this email is for real patriots only.
Oh.
You've been identified as one of President Trump's fiercest and most dedicated supporters, and according to your donor file, you'd make an excellent addition to the Trump 1000 Club. For a short time, you can get one of President Trump's official Trump $1,000 bills. The president wants you and every other member of our exclusive Trump 1000 Club to have something you can remember, a Trump $1,000 bill. This never before seen Trump $1,000 bill is for club members only, so do not pass this information to anyone.
Yeah.
Please give me $35 and we'll send you a fake limited edition Trump $1,000 bills. Those $1,000 bills, by the way, are available on eBay for like $2.
Oh, well, you can get it even cheaper. Perfect.
All right, so it's a perfect scam for him. Here's a $2 thing that you pay $35 for.
Yeah. Have you got that handy? I'd like to
of course.
include that. I
saw the headline and I had to click on it.
Yeah, I like Scampaign. That's cool. Nice. I like the framing there.
Right. And it was sent to him by somebody.
Was it
and
texted
he wrote,
to him by
I know what you're thinking.
Tim Scott?
It's like an old Steve Martin routine. I know what you're thinking. Hold on. The email says right up front, don't forward it. So my buddy is now screwed.
Yeah.
probably going to be investigated, and maybe he should call Rudy Giuliani. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe if you had a non-disclosure agreement, you could be in trouble.
And
now.
besides, a Trump 1000 club sounds maybe not super exclusive. Maybe it should have been a Trump 5 club.
Yeah, oh, right, true. That's another thing. Hey, you like to have small, intimate groups.
Right?
But no one would believe they
a
would be one
limited
of the
edition
5.
Trump $1,000 bill for $35. It's like they're giving money away.
Yeah. I wonder how many
I thought he
people
was a businessman.
think it's like legal tender even. Like this is a great deal. I pay $35, they give me $1,000.
Right, so I'm going to show you what happens when you click through this scam ad. You get taken to this page, join the Trump 1000 Club, and you can give all sorts of amount of money. Tell me something. Does this look like a winning campaign, or does it look like Harold Hill trying to suction every last dollar out of the rubes before he skips town?
A little bit. Yes.
A little bit. So I thought that was good. Did I send you this? This is the Columbia Journalism Review article, How Are We Feeling? A survey reveals the hardships of covering a life or death story and what challenges will linger for the reporters.
No.
And just so you know, the psychological and emotional impacts of dealing with the COVID-19 crisis, 70% said they felt that. Concerns about unemployment or other financial impacts, 67%. The intense workload, 64%. Social isolation, 59%. Physical risk, 54%. Technical challenges at reporting, 51%. I haven't seen a similar thing from healthcare workers, but I'm sure they would feel the same. Everybody feels the same. Yeah. And so, again, I just want to highlight, as much as I dump on Haberman and Jake Sherman, and they deserve it, the hardworking reporters who are trying to cover this are, in bad straits. And by the way, the jobs are disappearing. And it's gotten to the point where the bulk of the White House Correspondents Association refused to travel on the press plane with Trump.
Right. Well, who would want to go with that guy? He's sick.
Now, White House Correspondents Association said they'd still make sure it was covered.
How?
But I'm not sure. Well, I don't know that they'll take the same plane to get to where they're going.
Oh, okay. So you just watched the Air Force One out the window.
Yeah, something
Looks like it's
that.
flying okay.
Right?
Yeah.
When we asked how journalists prioritize their needs, 76% ranked resources to meet operating costs at the top of the list. In second place was training and equipment for remote reporting. And a number of newsrooms, including New York Daily News, Orlando Sentinel, Annapolis Capital Gazette, and many other examples internationally, they're being shuttered permanently. The future of journalism seems to be out of office. Many journalists feel unprepared, and they're shifting their news gathering practices. So they do a lot more remote reporting during the pandemic. They're like us. They're like the bloggers.
Yes.
Over the phone, through video and audio apps, other email. Perhaps noteworthy is the increased reliance on private groups on social media platforms like WhatsApp and Facebook groups. Okay. And the access can be haphazard, but that's how they try to keep in touch and do their work. So in sum, our survey paints a picture of a profession absorbed in essential work amid a decreased sense of security and overwhelming amount of mis and disinformation that the dominant technology platforms have failed to confront. Our findings demonstrate that a free and effective press needs not just protection from targeted violence, harassment, and political interference, but also financial support, which is why I try to subscribe to as many papers as I can.
Oh,
and I ignore, why don't you, cancel your subscription to the New York Times? I get it, but no, that's not the approach I'm not going to take. I'm not going to take.
Well, then we'll stop trying to make you do it. I haven't tried.
One last thing here.
Yes.
This is from David Eggert from Michigan. While you and I were sleeping, the Michigan legislature passed a bunch of COVID-related bills overnight in the wake of the state Supreme Court ruling. You may remember they said that Gretchen Whitmer didn't have the power to do this by executive order. So they now passed legislation. They deal with unemployment benefits, liability protections for health workers and businesses, nursing homes, and more. The bills were passed after hours of negotiations between the GOP-led legislator and Democratic governor. I'm checking to see if Whitmer will sign new liability protections for businesses sued over COVID-19, but other bills appear to codify Whitmer's negated orders. So it's just a reminder, as things get sour with the U.S. Supreme Court, there are legislative fixes that get around whatever the court does.
Yes,
that doesn't fix everything, but it can fix a lot of things. It requires you to have the votes.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to vote for the Senate and reelect people like Gary Peters and throw out people like Tom Tillis, even if you have to hold your nose to vote for Cal Cunningham, because you just do.
Right.
And that's why we are where we are. So that's my summary for today, and that brings you pretty much to the next hour.
I think so.
There.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'll need those those last two items I would like to have for the roundup.
Oh,
of
you'll
course.
have them. You'll have them.
And I want them on my desk by 9 o'clock.
Well, here's another,
Today
and
morning.
this is from Goucher College.
Okay.
Coronavirus impact.
Aha.
How do you feel since the outbreak? This is for everybody.
Great.
And it's just like the reporters. Frustrated 58%, stressed 57%, angry 33%, sad 33%, lonely 26%.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're lonely, listen to Kagro in the morning, every morning, Monday through Friday.
Right.
And you can at least listen to your friends chatting. But, it's not just the reporters that are in this situation. It's a bad situation altogether. And frankly, I blame Donald Trump, and that's why I'm voting for Joe Biden.
I would blame him, too. It seems like it's his fault. Yeah, poor reporters, too. I'm so sad for them. Although I really thought, actually, now that I think about the numbers you told me about it, that only there were very high numbers of them experiencing all the other anxieties. Only 51% of them were terribly worried about the new tech demands of the workplace. I have a feeling a lot of them are getting used to, or were getting used to, remote work anyway. I suppose if you're following the president around, all your stories are filed remotely. But if you're not the White House reporter, I guess it could be new. But consider it on-the-job training for reporting in the future, I guess,
right.
Pandemic or no.
This is a Georgia poll from this morning, just out, Survey USA. Biden 48, Trump 46. In the Senate, Perdue 46, Ossoff 43. And Warnock 30, Loeffler 26, Collins 20, and Matt Lieberman 8.
Still there.
So, but Warnock has gone to the top of the list, but he's not going to get the numbers he needs to avoid a runoff. So we'll see what happens.
Extra money.
But, the top line there, Biden maintaining a 2-point essential virtual tie within the margin of error in Georgia.
Pretty good.
We have Trump, who's going to Macon, Georgia. Macon, Georgia. A Republican, 3 weeks before the election, feels obligated to go to Macon, Georgia to shore up his support.
Just to
that
be sure.
tells you what's going on.
Yeah. Well, he can get his ego bath there as well. So, okay, very good. We've packed a lot into this. There's a lot we didn't get to. We'll try and get to after the break, and then, of course, we'll see you again tomorrow in case anything doesn't fit in the next hour. Thanks, Greg. Take care. We'll see you tomorrow. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We are into our second hour. Much we did not get to, much we'll say. A few things that we didn't get to that I'll just save for tomorrow. Hint, hint. I don't know. We'll get to all of that later on. Some other things that deserve sharing here. I watched last night, and I warn you, it's a rough watch just in terms of, I guess, blood pressure for some people or despondency. Could be a result. It might make your blood boil and make you go out and vote or donate more money. I don't know. But I'll bring it up again tomorrow just to remind Greg that it's out there because he loves reminding us, as he has from the beginning, that Trump is a chaos agent. And this documentary, I guess, miniseries is what they call it. It's a documentary miniseries, as a matter of fact, called Agents of Chaos, which I don't think Greg actually had any hand in titling, but he could have. And it was all about the Russian interference in the election and how it came about. And I thought it actually did a pretty good job in laying it out in organized fashion so that you avoided the problems that sometimes arise in thinking back on this and other related stories of conflating the different threads. And it was easy to do, and I think it was probably intentional on the part of some people to conflate the threads, but it sorts it out nicely. I don't know if I learned anything brand new, nothing huge that was brand new in the stories. I mean, it told the stories largely as I remembered them, but I thought in fairly organized fashion and laid it out pretty well for people who might have had a vague idea of all of the stories out there and didn't follow it very closely. But I guess I'll recommend it. It's very interesting. It was on HBO, and I don't know whether yesterday was the premiere of it or not. No, I guess not. First episode date was September 23rd, so maybe several of you have already seen it. I just happened to cross it, at random last night, and it meant I stayed up late to watch it. It's 2 parts to this miniseries, so I guess that's the miniest thing you can be and still be a series. That's otherwise a 1-episode miniseries is just a regular documentary, if it's a documentary series. Otherwise, it's just a movie. But it was pretty interesting. They decided to break it up into 2 parts. And the first part seemed to focus on the trolling and social media manipulation part of things. And then the second part sort of focused on, there was some mention of the hacking of the emails and other things in part 1. And they did a pretty good job, I thought. Here's what I mean when I say they separated the issues pretty well. They did a fairly good job in separating. Well, there was the hacking of the emails at the Democratic National Committee, and that is a separate thing and a separate issue from the question of whether or not Hillary Clinton's private server for emails on which she allegedly conducted, I guess, I don't know, we're still in allegedly, government business, that they're 2 separate things, but because they both involve email, and because Donald Trump called out to the Russian government to please hack something somewhere so that they could get Hillary Clinton's allegedly missing emails, this whole thing was conflated in the public mind, and it was very easy. And they even had some nice clips of television reporters interviewing Republicans. In this case, Renee Elmers. Remember her? Renee Elmers was on TV and answering reporters' questions about the DNC email hack, and then she began to conflate that with Hillary Clinton's private server, because that's where her party wanted her to go with that interview, and they try to stop her and clear that up, that there are 2 separate issues, and she's like, she actually is, pretty well coached at objecting over them. No, they really are the same issue for, because reasons. And we don't get to see how that particular interview came out in the end, but I imagine she probably got her point across, even though it was a false one. But it was interesting the way it was presented and divided, and you come out with a pretty good understanding of what happened. There's a lot of discussion about what happened inside the Obama administration and how they ended up coming to the decision, for instance, at the very end of the Obama administration, not to announce that they had all this information and not to make a big deal out of the Russian interference they had already discovered and documented, and why that was. And I think we all have an idea of what was motivating them to do that. But it was interesting to get an inside perspective from some of the people who, and who knows, they may be exaggerating after the fact now that there's a camera in their face. I was the one who was saying we really should have been more aggressive, but I understood the argument as it was made to me that we should not be doing this. And it was, unfortunately, is a fairly sensible argument not to have intervened. It's only in hindsight that it looks particularly terrible. And now that we know, for instance, that everything will not be in good hands eventually. Hillary Clinton will not be declared the winner of the election, and it'll be put in the hands of the guy who perpetrated all this stuff to sort it out. Anyway, very interesting. We don't get any advertising or endorsement money. I just happened to see the thing and thought it was good, and maybe you'll like it too. And it involves a couple hours of investment in terms of time to get through them all. And look, if you look it up on Google, it'll even tell you when it's coming on TV again soon. It'll be on today at 11:05 p.m. Episode 1 airs on HBO 2 in the East, I guess, at 11:05. Tomorrow at 2:05 a.m. And they get the whole schedule. So it's on in the next couple of days. If you got a TiVo or some similar DVR and you want to set it up, or you want to watch it on their apps on demand, you got that option. It's only Wednesday. Maybe you want to wait for the weekend to catch up on it. Like I said, it's kind of old news, but well organized, well presented. I still have yet to watch the one about Comey. I don't know if I can take the two of them in the same week, though. We'll see. All right, let's see. Greg tweets some more about the cleanup on aisle 4, Maggie Haberman, Jake Sherman situation. What's going on here? Look, they're finally realizing exactly how crazy things are. Maggie Haberman, I guess, according to this screen grab, tweets about an hour ago, things that are sketchy in the New York Post story on Hunter Biden. She's finally getting around to it. Why wasn't this in Ron Johnson's report if it's been in his possession for a while? That is a good question. I didn't really review his report, but why? You would think that would be there. When did Giuliani acquire it? Giuliani has been everywhere on this, maybe she meant, but this has been kicking around since late last year and unreleased until now. Two good questions posed just as well, I thought, by Greg's reading of Daniel Goldman's thread. And then Jake Sherman retweeting her and saying, yeah, and how did Rudy get it? And yeah, those are, I guess, questions that, again, maybe in hindsight, but again, we should probably be learning this lesson at this point. You want to ask before you retweet them to your gang if you're a big following, big name reporter like Jake Sherman or Maggie Haberman. I could see myself making a similar mistake. I'm sure I have made similar mistakes, retweeting things that turned out not to be entirely solid. And sometimes I actually do it consciously and say, I know this is probably either a joke or a hoax or made up, but I just like the joke and I'm going to retweet it. And I don't view myself as a news source. And that's part of the difference, I guess, between the way I operate on Twitter and the way Jake Sherman and Maggie Haberman operate on Twitter. I guess they should probably learn that lesson soon, if not immediately. And I guess this is their effort at cleaning up afterwards. And I'm glad it's there and we acknowledge it. But, there are plenty of apt sayings about how quickly that kind of garbage circulates versus the corrections. And you know them all. I don't need to remind you of them. Okay, let's see what's over in Pocket and in my own Twitter thread of the last couple of days to bring up. Let's see. Oh, yes. With regard to that town hall that Trump is going to be conducting, and we were talking about the problems members of the media are having with the confidence that they're not going to get sick and die just by hanging around a still infectious Donald Trump. NBC, of course, if they're going to host this town hall, they're going to be invested in pretending that Trump is perfectly safe to work with. So to that end, Hallie Jackson, their chief White House correspondent, tweeted out earlier today that per NBC, where she works, Dr. Clifford Lane, who I don't know if I'm supposed to, but I guess I'll look him up just to be sure. But we'll get to the comment here. Dr. Clifford Lane and Dr. Anthony Fauci, who we do now know, quote, have reviewed Trump's recent medical data, including a PCR test collected and analyzed by NIH on Tuesday, that would have been yesterday, and have concluded, again, quote, within the quote, with a high degree of confidence, inside unquote, that the president is, again, inside quote, not shedding infectious virus, close inside quotes, close outside quotes. You got it? I'm doing it like parentheses so that you know the order of operations here. So doctors Clifford Lane, whoever that is, and Fauci have reviewed Trump's recent medical data, including this test collected by NIH on Tuesday, and conclude with a high degree of confidence that he's not shedding infectious virus. That's not the best possible statement that they could make, but I guess it's the truthiest statement that they could make, and I guess I trust Fauci. I don't know who Clifford Lane is, but again, I want to point out for the benefit of Hallie Jackson and everybody else at NBC and everyone else listening, what we're looking at is that Dr. Lane and Dr. Fauci have reviewed, I guess they say, and I believe it, They've reviewed what's purported to be Trump's recent medical data. I don't know anything about the swab being collected. They say the right things, but I don't know if I believe it. I don't know if that's his data. I don't know if it's real data. I don't know if it's faked. I don't know anything about it. We don't know anything about the provenance of the data. It's data that we should have on the president, and the NIH should be in possession of that data because they should be taking better and more frequent care of an actual president who was actually infected with COVID and is actually in the middle of recovering. But we all have doubts about whether or not any of that is true. So they reviewed some data that somebody said was Trump's, and based on that data, they said, well, we have a high degree of certainty, a high degree of confidence that this person whose data this purports to be isn't shedding infectious virus. Maybe that's even true. But we need to be a little more, careful about that, and they're not being all that careful about it to date. All right, so we have that. Let's see. Other things of interest today still circulating in my Twitter feed. Just update for you in case you're watching the numbers as of last night. 4,073 Americans, by my observation of Worldometer's numbers, 4,073 Americans have died since Trump promised that he'd give out the miracle cure for free in his video released at 1 p.m. on October 8th. And we're not really sure what he's waiting for. But people continue to die, but he's pretty sure that he can stop it all with his $100,000 miracle cure that he's going to give away for free. And I think I saw somebody doing the math on that on Twitter the other night, too. And, at $100,000 a pop, giving it to everybody who needs it in the United States seems like an expensive prospect. But among his faithful, remember that they believe that things like that are possible because he's a billionaire and he's totally doing it out of pocket because he cares about Americans so much. In other coronavirus news, just as I watch those numbers every day, Alaska has gone over the top on 10,000 cumulative cases of COVID-19. The fifth remaining member of what I call the under 10,000 club. That is to say, states that have to date reported fewer than 10,000, and that's a high bar, 10,000 cases of COVID. There are now only 4 states left in the entire country that haven't reached that point. One of them is New Hampshire, which is tiny in terms of both population and space, but they are on the brink anyway, with 9,279 cumulative cases as of last night. I give them about 10 days before they go over the top. Wyoming, tiny state in terms of population. In fact, I think the tiniest in terms of population, though it's big in area, and that means sparsely populated, and that accounts for the fact that they have 7,964 cases, but they too are not long for the under 10K club, as they are sitting in the middle of what I still have to guess is just the Sturgis bloom of coronavirus outbreaks. Speaking of Sturgis, North Dakota is now poised in the next day or so to overtake Louisiana as the state with the most infections cumulatively per capita. Louisiana jumped out to an early lead, having hosted Mardi Gras, as it does, and never really got out from underneath it. Even perhaps during the course of the big outbreaks in New York and New Jersey and the Northeast, they may have been pushed briefly out of the top spot, but they crept back in there in the time since, and they've never really gotten out from underneath their outbreak. But now Sturgis in neighboring South Dakota appears to have infected the entire Midwestern Upper Plains and the Mississippi Valley all the way straight down to the Gulf, actually, are some of the hottest hot spots going. So North Dakota in trouble as well. The other remaining members of the under 10,000 club are also small-ish states with small-ish populations and tucked away in the far northeast and bordered on one side by Canada, which is not having the same kind of outbreak as us, Maine and Vermont. Maine considerably lower than the rest, 5,780 cases, but they've had their own outbreaks. The wedding industry, apparently, handing those out. But Vermont, which has been also not only it remains remote and of small population and tiny, but also I think was early very aggressive in controlling its borders the best they could and not allowing people to enter the state and stay without quarantining. And I guess if you're tiny enough, you can actually enforce that. And as you know, Vermont, everybody knows everybody else, so they know when you're a stranger, and they make you quarantine up here. And they're down at 1,886 cases, so kind of holding it together there. But just to give you an idea of where we stand with the rest of the world, there are entire countries that have less cumulative cases than some of our American states. And the fact that pretty soon, almost every single one of our 50 states will have by themselves at least 10,000 cases is pretty ridiculous. I mean, you can compare the states to one another, but if you compare us to the rest of the world, we look like crap, and that's Donald Trump's fault. Switching over to Pocket, where the longer form stories are hiding. Let's see. What do we need to share with you here? Another report, this one being carried forward by USA Today, but another report, the original report being in where? I feel like one of the more... There we are. In the Journal of the American Medical Association, a report from researchers at Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond, Virginia, once again confirming the same sort of things we've heard all along, which is that several thousand more people in the United States have died from COVID-19 than were actually reported in the official numbers for various reasons. Sometimes state coroners were under direction from the executive in those states, often Republican states, to downplay the numbers. This time the number is pegged here at about, in the headline in USA Today, about 75,000 more Americans died from COVID-19 pandemic than reported in the spring and summer study finds, written up for USA Today by Adriana Rodriguez, basically reaching the conclusion that the numbers we know about, which stand at around 222,000 people, plus 75,000, give or take, means we're closer probably to about 300,000 deaths than 200,000. But so far, none of this has really sunk in. The mainstream media is, of course, reporting it. They're just not adjusting their numbers. There's just nothing solid enough to hang their hat on. And there's no ticker that says 300,000. So maybe the researchers at the VCU should put that one up and give them a source to refer to, and they might start picking up on their numbers. I think that's kind of what it takes. If you have a ticker, they believe you. I don't know, for better or for worse. All right, let's see. Other stories that I have for you here. Another COVID-related one from the Washington Post, which I thought you might find interesting as well. As U.S. unemployment soared, Germany's barely budged. Is America's safety net enough? Asks this story by Heather Long and Andrew Van Dam. No relation to Jean-Claude as far as I can tell, and they spell the name differently. Subheader here noting the U.S. unemployment rate soared to 14.7% in April, whereas the German unemployment rate rose to just 4% that month, and yet we were both experiencing COVID-19 outbreaks, quarantines, and closure of significant portions of the economy. But as you know, basically what this is a story of a competent leader in Germany handled the pandemic well, and an incompetent boob of a leader handled it very poorly here in the United States, and America has suffered for it. So there you go. Current news, of course, in this is that U.S. unemployment rate fell to 7.9% last month, which is a substantial improvement from the nearly 15% mark that it hit in April, but is still significantly worse than other advanced economies around the world. And so this is offered up as a how did that happen kind of a story, and I gather that the long story turned short here is if you, one, have a robust safety net, and two, take the job of leading the country seriously, you could do a better job with things. And so maybe even, let's say, if all of the computer repair shop people in Delaware are telling the truth, and it's absolutely true that they totally had emails between Hunter Biden and Joe Biden admitting to all the crime that they liked doing so much, plus all the crack, you might still conclude, well, and this could very well be the choice people are making all over the country. This is how I would make the choice. One of these two candidates, even if they were both equally corrupt, even if that were really true, I guess I would say I choose the one that will get us out of the pandemic, that seems sort of dedicated to actually doing it, as opposed to saying, I don't know, maybe I don't have to do anything at all as long as I get to play golf. If all the rest of you die, then eventually I understand there's herd mentality, as he says. And so it'll take care of itself. It'll disappear. It'll go away. And in the meantime, you all have to test to get within 5-10 yards of me. So what the hell do I care? Basically, I would vote for, I guess at this point, if these are the two choices, would I vote for a corrupt candidate, an admittedly corrupt candidate who says, oh, yeah, I will actually do something about the virus, and I believe that person, then I would say, yeah, sure, maybe I might actually do it at this point. I think I could be, you could consider me a one-issue voter on that at this point. I think we're never getting out from this thing. This thing may have been, the pandemic may have been destined to last 2 years or more anyway, because sometimes pandemics do. But I don't know, I think you probably agree with me that I feel like there was more that could have been done to mitigate. And Germany, case in point. Other news of some import, going chronologically through what I stored in Pocket. The, quote, unmasking probe commissioned by the guy who purports to be Attorney General, William Barr, concludes, can you believe this, without charges or any public report. And this isn't the Durham report. This isn't the Ron Johnson report. This is another one that I don't even think I knew was a separate investigation and anticipated report, but the report never came out. Matt Zapotosky, I think, and Shane Harris reporting this one. Oh, by the way, speaking of my poor pronunciation of people's last names, the mini-series of 2 installments, Agents of Chaos, alleges that the former president of Ukraine pronounces his last name, or that we in English are meant to pronounce it as Yanukovych, as opposed to Yanukovych, which is the pronunciation I was giving it. So Yanukovych, I guess, sounds like the people who know what they're talking about, the diplomats and such, that were interviewed for the piece, for the story, say it Yanukovych instead. So I guess I'll take their word for it. So over to Matt Zapotosky, who might not even be Ukrainian at all, and Shane Harris, who doesn't sound Ukrainian. The federal prosecutor appointed by Attorney General William P. Barr to review whether Obama-era officials improperly requested the identities of individuals whose names were redacted in intelligence documents has completed his work without finding any substantive wrongdoing. Surprise, surprise. According to people familiar with the matter. That sounds like kind of what we expected. Normal people expected to be the outcome, but this, again, is not Durham, who likewise was investigating at least the origins of the Trump-Russia investigation. You would think this could have been handed off to him too, but it wasn't. The revelation that U.S. Attorney John Bash, who left the department last week, that's interesting too, had concluded his review without criminal charges or any public report. I don't even understand how you do that, quite honestly. Even if you found nothing, I would feel like obligated to say, well, here's my report. I didn't find anything, but I will report that to you. But he didn't. Well, that will, of course, rankle President Trump at a moment when he is particularly upset at the Justice Department. Maybe he then pressed them to release this stupid thing to the New York Post as well. The department has so far declined to release the results of Bash's work. I guess it's not in any form to release. There's no report. Though people familiar with his findings say they would likely disappoint conservatives who have tried to paint the unmasking of names, a common practice in government to help understand classified documents, as a political conspiracy. The president in recent days has pressed federal law enforcement to move against his political adversaries and complained that a different prosecutor tapped by Barr to investigate the FBI's 2016 of his campaign will also not be issuing any public findings before the election. That's the John Durham report. And we're about 5 seconds behind on the music as a result of my entrancement by this story. Legal analysts feared that Bash's review was yet another attempt by the Trump's Justice Department to target political opponents of the president. It was. Even if it ultimately produced no results of consequence, legal analysts said it allowed Trump and other conservatives to say Obama-era officials were under scrutiny as long as the case stayed active. Well, that's over. Hi everybody, it's me, David. Let's change things up from the old fundraising pitch for just a minute and talk instead about how you can be a part of our show. If you've got a smartphone or any other electronic recording device, why not sit down and record a segment for us? Read us an important article and give us your take. Read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Then send the file to me at kagrox@gmail.com and I'll try and work it into the show. Short segments, a few minutes in length, are easiest to fit in. And of course, I can't always guarantee that I'll be able to play everything, but if you've ever shouted at your radio or TV about something you wish was being covered, here's your chance to change that. Make the show your own. Send your submissions to me at kagrox@gmail.com. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. All right, I guess I left myself extra buffer at the end of that one before coming in because of starting the music late. Let's see. Just trying to clean up what we did and didn't discuss on from Pocket yesterday before continuing on with the story of the non-result in the unmasking probe, such as it was. Let's see. The Justice Department, under both Barr and Trump's previous Attorney General Jeff Sessions, has repeatedly turned to U.S. attorneys across the country to investigate matters of Republican concern, distressing current and former Justice Department officials who fear that the department leaders are repeatedly caving to Trump's pressure to benefit his allies and target those he perceives as political enemies, which he is doing and is true. Let's see. Kerry Kupec, remember her? The Justice Department's top spokeswoman, had first revealed Bash's review in May after Republican senators made public a declassified list of U.S. officials, including former Vice President Joe Biden, can you believe it, who made requests that would ultimately reveal the name of Trump advisor Michael Flynn, the notorious spy, of course, in intelligence documents as late as in late 2016 and early 2017. In an appearance on Fox News that month, Kupec told Sean Hannity that Barr had tapped Bash, the top federal prosecutor in San Antonio, to review Obama-era officials' unmasking requests. She said that though the practice inherently isn't wrong, the frequency with which requests were made or the motive for making them could be problematic. Though unmasking is common and appropriate because it allows government officials to better understand a document they're reading, Trump and others suggested that the list of requests that ultimately revealed Flynn's name showed wrongdoing. Bash's team was focused not just on unmasking, but also on whether Obama-era officials provided information to reporters, according to people familiar with the probe, who spoke on condition of anonymity, of course. But the findings ultimately turned over to Barr fell short of what Trump and others might have hoped. And the Attorney General's office elected not to release them publicly. The people familiar with the matter said the Washington Post was unable to review the full results of what Bash found. He announced, though, last week, Bash did, that he was leaving the department, surprising many in the Justice Department because the move came so close to the election, though he made no mention of the unmasking review. He said in a statement that he had informed the Attorney General of the decision a month earlier and had accepted an offer for a position in the private sector. He gave formal resignation letters to the President and the Attorney General on October 5th, and his last day was last Friday. Before being nominated as the U.S. Attorney, Bash worked in the Solicitor General's office as an associate counsel to Trump. Bash thanked Trump and others in the statement, and Barr offered his gratitude for Bash's service. I appreciate his service to our nation, wish him the very best, said Barr. Asked Tuesday if Bash had quit over anything related to the unmasking stuff, Kupech said, "No, that wasn't my understanding." Well, that's what she has to say. At the time Bash's departure was announced, she had said of the unmasking review, without commenting on any specific investigation, any matters that John Bash was overseeing will be assumed by Greg Sofer, who was tapped to replace Bash as the U.S. Attorney. She declined this week to comment specifically on the status of the unmasking investigation. Bash declined to comment. A spokesman for a U.S. Attorney's office in San Antonio said he wouldn't immediately comment. It was not immediately why the department was holding back Bash's findings. I guess maybe they hope that Greg Sofer will turn it all into a report and maybe find something too. Officials do not generally discuss investigations that have been closed without criminal charges, though Bash's case is unusual because it was announced publicly by the department's spokeswoman. Justice Department policies and tradition, too, call for prosecutors not to take public steps in cases close to an election that might affect the results. But, of course, we did learn the other day that Barr had issued a new directive permitting just that. I don't know if we've spent any time discussing it on the air, but it did happen. And essentially, my comment on it on Twitter was this basically opens the door and permits somebody to pull a Comey at the end. In other words, instead of the old rule book that Comey ignored in issuing his statement about reopening the Clinton email investigation. Clinton email, not the DNC email, the Clinton email investigation late in October of last year violated that policy, but he thought it was really important for America to do that for some reason. This now says, well, to hell with that policy. We'll announce stuff that will help us in the election whenever we feel like it. So I guess this is would have been the first report to do that, except guess what? They didn't find it. I am kind of impressed with the fact that Bash appears to have had every reason to have simply fabricated the evidence that he was being asked to find. He was apparently kind of a Trump loyalist, and I don't know exactly what drove him to simply say, I'm not going to do it, but he didn't. So I guess that's good, even if there was a bad reason for doing it. If there was a good reason, I guess we need to find that out. But I need more before I go around praising John Bash, I guess, on this. Anyway, there was, of course, before Bash's appointment, John Durham's appointment from Connecticut. He also had been looking at unmasking as part of his broader investigation into the FBI's 2016 probe of whether the Trump campaign coordinated with Russia to influence the election. It was not clear how Durham's and Bash's work intersected. Barr recently told some Republican lawmakers, not me, but told Republican lawmakers no report of Durham's investigation would be released before the November election, though unlike Bash's review, Durham's work seems to be ongoing, people familiar with the matter said. Trump has in recent days called the delay in the Durham case a disgrace and asserted that his 2016 opponent, Hillary Clinton, should be jailed. You know that. He keeps saying that all the time. He was previously critical of another prosecutor specially tapped by then Attorney General Sessions to investigate matters related to Clinton, but whose case ended with no public report or allegations of wrongdoing. Barr has said previously that he would not hold back Durham's findings because of concerns about any impact on the election, as investigators were not focused on political candidates. From early on in the Trump administration, some GOP lawmakers have sought to investigate and highlight Obama-era unmasking requests, believing them to be inappropriate. The effort was initially pushed in part by Devin Nunes, though the House Intelligence Committee he chaired at the time also asked U.S. spy agencies to reveal the names of U.S. individuals or organizations contained in classified intelligence on Russia's interference. In May, Republican Senators Ron Johnson, Charles Grassley, and Rand Paul breathed new life into the effort, releasing a list of those who had made unmasking requests. The lists included the names of more than 36 Obama administration officials, among them Biden, Former White House Chief of Staff Dennis McDonough, do you even remember that he was Chief of Staff? Former FBI Director James Comey, former CIA Director John Brennan, and former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper. Then Acting Director of National Intelligence Richard Grenell, remember that guy? He's the Trump guy, had declassified and personally delivered that list to the Justice Department. His arrival captured by a pre-positioned Fox News camera on the same day the Justice Department moved to drop criminal charges against Flynn. Paul said at the time, "We sort of have the smoking gun." This is Rand Paul. Have the most smoking gun because we now have the declassified document with Joe Biden's name on it. But there are a lot of documents with Joe Biden's name on it, and this one doesn't help. And Trump renewed his broader attacks on the investigation of possible coordination between Russia and his campaign, suggesting those involved should be jailed. "I'm talking with 50-year sentences," Trump said in an interview with Fox Business Network. Kupek soon appeared on Fox News and announced Bash's inquiry, so it was all a reaction to him getting on Fox Business News Network and saying they should all be jailed for 50 years. We got to do something about this. So let's see. Here comes Bash's inquiry. His work came on top of that of Durham and U.S. Attorney Jeff Jensen in St. Louis, another one who had been tapped specially to review the Flynn case and ultimately advised that the Justice Department should drop it. That's still playing out in the courts. The end of Bash's case is similar to that of a review conducted by John Huber, a U.S. attorney in Utah, who was asked in November of 2017 by Sessions to look into concerns raised by Trump and his allies in Congress that the FBI had not fully pursued cases of possible corruption at the Clinton Foundation during Clinton's time as Secretary of State. The Post reported in January that the inquiry had effectively ended with no tangible results. Again and again and again, this keeps happening. In the months that followed, Trump bemoaned the state of the inquiry on Twitter, asserting that Huber did absolutely nothing. He was a garbage disposal unit for important documents. And then, tap, 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 just drag it along and run out of time. Trump wrote, well, he only hires the best people. So I guess that, I give that to you. We can work it into this context. We now have, let's see, Huber, Bash, Jensen, Durham, Johnson, who else has been assigned by Devin Nunes, assigned by Republicans to investigate pretty much the same thing over and over again, even if it's a different aspect or just a renewed accusation against the same people for different things, but none of them have come to fruition. But this laptop discovered in a repair shop in Delaware totally will. I think you get the idea. All right, let's see. I have a note for clarification on the good folks of Vermont and Maine who have managed to avoid gigantic outbreaks like the rest of the states to date. And I guess because I mentioned that they backed up to Canada and that there probably wasn't a whole lot of cross-border traffic bringing lots and lots of COVID from Canada into those states. It was probably coming in from the south. Ricky tells me, Ricky May, you know, our Canuckistani, as she calls herself, that New Brunswick, which is on the other side of the Canadian border, that's the province on the other side from Maine and Vermont. New Brunswick has 2 outbreaks going on at the moment. One in Moncton, which is close to the provincial borders with Prince Edward Island, which is where she is, and Nova Scotia. And one in Campbellton, which is near the border with Quebec. So I don't know what the proximity to the borders necessarily means, although maybe it tells us that that poor New Brunswick is being beset from both sides by outsiders, although the idea of huge hordes of COVID-infected PEI folks pouring into Moncton is probably not really doing it. It's probably more that PEI is worried that if there's an outbreak in Moncton, it might reach us. But I don't know. I'm not certain what the dynamics are. And besides, it's Thanksgiving time up in Canada. I think it was actually Monday, right? Or do I have that right? My calendar mentioned that it was Canadian Thanksgiving around this week, and I forgot to mention it and wish all my Canadian friends a happy Thanksgiving. But I can't because I have too much COVID around me, and it's not working. But there you have it. I've been to Moncton, by the way. I've been there, and it was a fun and interesting visit. And there was no COVID when I went there because it was 1993. So Who knows? I don't know. Maybe it was maybe COVID escaped from the permafrost at some point, and there is somewhere hiding in Canada that I didn't know about, even in 1993. But it was frozen and stayed frozen until just now. All right, let's see. Other items for our consideration, once again involving Donald Trump and the courts, as you might imagine. Grabbing this report from The Hill, written up by John Krusel, Trump again asks Supreme Court to shield tax records. Now, that might be a little bit confusing to us because I feel like we've already been there, and the answer is yes, we have. And, usually things work their way up to the courts, and then they get settled by the Supreme Court, and then everybody says, okay, the case is over now. But not Donald Trump. President Trump on Tuesday filed an emergency request to the Supreme Court asking the justices to shield his tax records from a New York grand jury subpoena. The filing from Trump's personal attorneys marks the second time that the president has asked the Supreme Court of the United States to block Manhattan District Attorney Cyrus Vance from obtaining 8 years of his tax records. How can this be, right? In July, the justices voted 7-2 to reject Trump's argument that presidents have sweeping immunity from the criminal process, but said that Trump could mount other legal objections in lower court proceedings. And since then, New York-based federal district and appellate courts have roundly rejected Trump's additional assertions. They said he could make them. He made them. In court, he lost. He appealed that to the appellate courts. He lost in the appellate courts. Now he's back, asking the Supreme Court to do this again. They roundly rejected, the lower courts did, Trump's additional assertions that the subpoena should be blocked because it's overly broad and was issued in bad faith and designed to harass the president. Tuesday's filing asks the justices to temporarily halt a ruling made last week by a 3-judge panel for the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit that upheld the enforceability of the grand jury subpoena. We probably noted that quickly last week. It also indicated Trump's intent to file a formal appeal of that ruling. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office last year subpoenaed Trump's accounting firm, Mazars USA, for the president's personal and business tax returns and other financial records. Trump has tried unsuccessfully for more than a year to fend off the request. But, now he's only got to make it a couple of weeks, right? Vance's office is looking into payments made to silence 2 women who alleged they had affairs with Trump, including Stormy Daniels. Michael Cohen, who pleaded guilty to bank fraud, tax fraud, and campaign finance violations, has said the payments were made in order to influence the outcome of the presidential election. Additionally, Vance's office hinted earlier this month that its subpoena is part of an investigation into possibly extensive and protracted criminal conduct at the Trump Organization, including potential fraud allegations detailed in media reports in recent years. And once again, he asks the Supreme Court to come to his rescue. They didn't last time. They thought they were done with him, but they left the door open, and now he's back. And I don't know. I guess that's sort of relevant to the Amy Coney Barrett hearings as well, because I suppose if you have a 6-3 majority, including Barrett, who's uniquely indebted, I think, to Donald Trump for this position that she finds herself in now. I think I knew it, but it never really struck me quite as clearly that, she comes to us from the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals, to which she was named by Donald Trump, which essentially means that she's been a high-level federal judge for a very short amount of time. She's just not got the record on the bench that traditionally we used to see from people who were named to the Supreme Court. They usually, established themselves as standouts in the circuits before anything else. And so I guess that was her first stint as a judge, and since she was named by Trump, it can't be all that long ago. He's only in his first term. So when did she was confirmed October 31st, 2017. So it's not even 3 years since she was confirmed. So she hasn't had 3 full active years on the federal appellate bench before moving up to the Supreme Court. From nothing to the circuit courts of appeal to the Supreme Court in 3 years is pretty remarkable and makes you awfully indebted to the president who put you there. So pretty good bet that she'd pay him back with favorable rulings. And of course, you only will need 4 justices in some cases to agree to take up a case, or a couple justices who can put out, opinions or not decisions without opinions attached to them on why or the fact that the court will or won't take up important or unimportant, for that matter, cases that the administration is pressing them to do, and that might leave things lying as they were, in some cases favorable to the administration and the courts below, et cetera, et cetera. But I guess he was embarrassed by having it be 7-2 against him on this one, and at least he's looking to come away with a 6-3 against him in the second time around. All right, so there's that, and that's a bit of a new one. Let's see. Here's a sort of a localized COVID story that I think was sent to me by Twitter user Great Gray, I believe, and I get these sorts of things every time I mention Alaska, and so my guess is, and it's probably borne out in the Twitter bio, Great Gray must be Alaskan. And mention came up before the other day and earlier in the show about the outbreaks in Alaska topping now the 10,000 mark. And so I got this from the Anchorage Daily News. Just interesting that things may be different up there in Alaska in terms of the way the outbreak is manifesting itself. More insidious than people realize, it says here in the headline. Thousands of younger Alaskans got sick with COVID-19, and they continue to drive up case counts. For 9 days, I'll give you a couple of taste of the opening paragraphs here. For 9 days, Toby, Germany, felt miserable. She couldn't concentrate. Her body ached. She was short of breath. You know what all this means. And Tylenol wasn't doing much of anything, save for maybe reducing her fever, said the 31-year-old University of Alaska Fairbanks nursing student. Like most bad things, you're like, oh, I read about that in the news, but it won't happen to me. And then it did, Germany said, and I feel like it's a lot more insidious than people realize. Germany is one of about 4,000 Alaskans in their 20s and 30s who have tested positive for COVID-19. And remember, they're just over 10,000. So a good 40% of the cases are in their 20s and 30s, which seems like it's a little different. The number of COVID-19 cases among younger adults far outweighs the portion of Alaska's population they represent. As of Friday, that's pretty specific, Alaskans in their 20s and 30s accounted for roughly 43% of the state's resident COVID-19 cases, but they make up about 29% of the state's population. There's no single reason behind it, but Alaska's numbers follow a national trend, with more young people testing positive for the coronavirus as the pandemic courses through the U.S. So I guess it's not all that different after all. Just our impression of it is outdated. Younger Alaskans with COVID-19 interviewed by the Daily News described an array of symptoms, and you know what they are. Fever that led to dehydration, brief hospital stay, perhaps sudden losses of taste and smell, fatigue, congestion. Some recovered quickly, others had symptoms that lingered for weeks. Not all the people who test positive for COVID-19 experience symptoms. We know about that. But interesting just that it's the younger people driving up the numbers in Alaska, and I guess I wouldn't necessarily have expected that. But although then they seem to state that that's actually the trend lately in the United States outbreak. Anyway, let's see. Yeah, that's just kind of crazy. She described some of her dealing with her symptoms. I was wondering whether they might have something in here about whether or not the Alaska Native population had been particularly hard hit, but I don't see it so far. The emphasis seems to be on the age dynamic as opposed to the demographics of race and ethnicity. But, that's can't be far from your mind when you're talking about anything affecting the population of Alaska. And we've heard so much about various minorities somehow being hit harder by all of this. And I guess the only common thread that seems to explain it is lack of access to health care and insurance coverage that tends to make you avoid seeking medical intervention on the early side, and that might explain things across the various ethnicities that have been particularly hard hit in all of this. All right, let's see. Others. Yes, another very... where's the... I thought I might go to this, but now I don't see it immediately. Is this it? No. I was looking around for David Farenthold's latest, where he had, I guess, done some detailed analysis of how money was moving from, through the Trump campaign and into Trump organization, and therefore Donald Trump's pockets personally. But I now don't see it as immediately available as I thought, and maybe it's a little bit further down. But I would have thought I would have seen it earlier, and maybe I just need to search his Twitter timeline. But maybe you'll need to do that on your own as we get close to the end of today's show. Let's see. Another item I meant to share with you, and now I can't recall exactly what's in it, but let's surprise ourselves. One of Greg Sargent's pieces, who always interesting and always helpful summation of what's going on in Trump world, but very often stuff that I feel like we've already covered by the time he gets around to collecting it. But he always makes great points about these things. This time I thought he touched on some issues that we hadn't quite gotten to yet. Trump's corrupt schemes to save himself keep blowing up in his face. This now a week old, October 7th, this piece. But I'm trying to recall off the top of my head what was it that was so interesting about it. Well, we'll skim through it and see if we can't remind ourselves in the absence of the Farenthold piece, which I would recommend to you. Unless, now that I think about it, I can switch over to Twitter quickly. I don't know. He probably tweeted this stuff out a few days ago, but, he tends to linger on and follow up on his stuff for a couple days afterwards. But, yeah, not that easy to find, unfortunately. But maybe, if you remember what it was that would have caught my interest, you do the show. How about that? It's very difficult to do some of these things on the fly, but I really thought I had put that one aside. Yeah, okay. I think he was following up once again on how much Secret Service money had been moved into Trump's pockets in particular here. And I scrolling down just about 24 hours ago, let's see, we see Farenthold tweeting, what we did find was lots of cases where Trump's company was charged much more than what they said they were charging Mar-a-Lago or charging the Secret Service for staying at Trump properties. But that's kind of as it struck me, that was a story that he had discussed before, but he had some very specific information about the dollar amounts that he was reporting on in the last couple of days. And I think that's probably what it was that grabbed my attention. Why it didn't stick when I clicked to put it in Pocket, I'm not sure. Here's his October 12th tweet linking to his piece. What President Trump's company charges the Secret Service. And I guess he considers this follow-up to his original allegations about, for instance, we heard that Eric Trump had said that they charge just for cleaning when they stay in one of the Trump hotel rooms or at Mar-a-Lago, etc., but they were instead charging $650 a night. So I guess this is maybe his final report on this, but I guess he's got all the details he needs to lay it out and give you an exact dollar amount in case you were waiting for that information. All right, so I guess we'll, in fact, skip over Greg Sargent once again. But very interesting, and he's got his, he says, he puts it in reverse chronological order, the various schemes that have blown up in his face. There was the Trump vaccine scheme imploding. Trump blows up the stimulus lifeline, and we're still trying to figure out where we stand with that one. Trump wrecks public goodwill toward himself. Very interesting. And then Amy Coney Barrett, implicated in the coronavirus massive outbreak and super spreader event. Let's see. Also, efforts to corrupt vote by mail backfiring and convincing his own base not to do it and putting them behind in the early vote counts in key states like Florida. Trump law and order agitprop tanks. Hunter Ghazi flops, but that, I guess they're revising. It only took a week for that to move back to the top of the list. And this is in reverse chronological order, which brings us all the way back to impeachment. That's how far back this goes. But remember, that was only this year. What a year it's been, eh? All right. Well, maybe we can continue in this thread and continue on with a couple other stories that I guess we'll have to mention and try and figure out what's going on with renewed efforts at bringing COVID relief to needy Americans, despite the fact that Mitch McConnell seems determined to block them. There was a blow-up between Nancy Pelosi and Wolf Blitzer yesterday, and I don't know where Wolf Blitzer's been all this time to find out, it doesn't matter if Nancy Pelosi passes anything if the Senate is going to kill it, but I guess that was news to him. We'll touch on that. Who knows what else will blow up in between now and then. We can discuss it all with Greg. And in the meantime, you can discuss all the things that I forgot or didn't find in my pocket with Justice Putnam on the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy next. And we'll get an idea of exactly what he's got in mind for you after this.
From netrootsradio.com, you have been listening to Kagro in the Morning.
With David Waldman.
All right, here's what we got. I think the author of the Melania Tell-All book is being accused by the Trump administration and the Justice Department of breaking her non-disclosure agreement and he's sicking the Justice Department on her. How about that? Overseas news from Russia coming up, too. An unprecedented threat to freeze contacts with the EU.